Every day at 4 o'clock, just like always, Alexandra brought the small, three-wheeled chair to the door of the little house. It was the chair used to help Madame Marambal, his elderly mistress. Following the doctor's orders, he would push her around until 6 o'clock to give her some fresh air. He carefully placed the chair by the step where it was easiest for Madame Marambal to get in. Then he went inside the house. Suddenly, the loud and angry voice of Captain Marambal, a retired soldier, filled the house. He was shouting and cursing as usual. There were sounds of doors slamming, chairs being moved, and quick footsteps. After a moment, everything went quiet. Alexandre came back to the door, helping Madame Marambal. She was tired from coming down the stairs. Once she was seated in the chair, Alexandre moved behind it, held the handles firmly, and started their daily walk toward the river. They walked through the small town where everyone greeted them with respect. The townspeople admired both Madame Marambal and Alexandra. She was loved for her kindness, and he was known as a loyal and hard-working servant. His long white beard and calm, dignified manner made him stand out. The sun was hot that day, shining brightly on the low houses. Dogs lay sleeping in the shade, trying to escape the heat. Alexandre, slightly out of breath, quickened his pace to reach the cool avenue leading to the river. Madame Marambal rested under her white parasol, which occasionally brushed Alexandra's face. When they reached the shady path lined with tall linden trees, she woke up and said gently, "Slow down, my dear Alexandra. You'll exhaust yourself in this heat." The path followed the Mavet River, which flowed peacefully, surrounded by willow trees. The sound of the water bubbling and splashing against the rocks filled the air, making the place cool and refreshing. Madame Marambal breathed deeply and said, "Ah, this is better. But he's been in a bad mood again today." "Yes, madame," Alexandre replied simply. Alexandra had worked for the Marambal family for 35 years. He started as the captain's orderly during his army days and stayed on as a servant after the captain retired. For the past 6 years, he had been taking Madame Marambal out every afternoon. Over the years, their close relationship became more like friendship, though he remained respectful. They often talked about the captain's bad temper. Madame Marambal sighed. "He's been like this so often since he left the army." Alexandre added, "Madam, I think it's been like this even before he left the army." "True," she agreed, "but he's had such bad luck. He did something brave when he was young and earned a medal. He thought he'd become a colonel, but he only retired as a captain. That disappointment. It's made him so bitter." Alexandre nodded. "Yes, madame, but maybe it's also his fault. He was always harsh and never tried to make friends with his superiors." That doesn't help when you want to succeed. And with us, we stay because we choose to. Others would have left. Madame Marambal thought quietly for a moment. She had married the captain long ago when he was a young, handsome officer. Life had turned out differently than she had hoped. She said, "Let's stop for a moment, Alexandre. You can rest on that bench." They stopped at a small wooden bench under the trees. Alexandre sat down, stroking his long white beard as if checking its length. Madame Marambal looked at him thoughtfully and said, "I understand why I stay. I married him. But why do you stay, Alexandre? We pay you so little, and he treats you poorly. You could have left, started your own life, married, had a family." Alexandre shrugged. "Oh, madame, it's just who I am." "What do you mean?" she asked. "When I care about someone, I stay loyal. That's just how I am." She laughed softly. "Surely you didn't stay because of my husband's sweet nature." Alexandre looked uncomfortable, pulling at his beard. Finally, he muttered, "It wasn't him, madame. It was you." Surprised, she turned to him. "Me? What do you mean?" He hesitated, then spoke quickly, as if confessing a secret. "The first time I brought you a letter from the lieutenant, you gave me a smile and a franc. That was it. I had feelings for you, madame." She was quiet, thinking about his words. She realized how much he had sacrificed to stay near her all these years without ever saying anything. Her eyes softened, and she said gently, "Let's go home, Alexandre." He stood up and began to push her chair again. As they reached the edge of the village, they saw Captain Marambal walking toward them. "What's for dinner?" the captain asked gruffly. "Chicken with beans," Madame Marambal replied. He exploded. "Chicken again? Always chicken. Don't you know how to cook anything else?" She calmly replied, "It's what the doctor says is best for your stomach. If you were healthier, I'd cook something different." The captain turned his anger to Alexandre. "And you've been poisoning me with your awful cooking for 35 years." Madame Marambal turned to Alexandre and gave him a warm, understanding look. In that moment, their eyes met, and they silently thanked each other.